I graduated from here, and this is where my son goes. So, and I live pretty much next door to it. I step out of my house, so I go right, and there's the. It sure is, because he can work everything he needs to do. Yes, there is. That's why we haven't moved him. He's 15, so he's got 3 more years. The whole time we just walked down the stair, it's like he got a hold of plant fever or something, because he is shot up so tall. And his biggest growth spot happened, but everything was still closed, so I can't get out.
Jeremy.
Oh, hi. I know, but that's thing, it's hard to know.
Here it is.
Jim Pauling, you're cutting up the chairs.
Yes, he keeps saying, I really just want band-aids. He's doing great lessons on Hudson, and he said, Mom, I don't know how to because he's preparing for all state auditions and KD auditions. I expect the auditions more than hopefully they do, because they don't usually do performances in labyrinths until the spring for KD and all state. So I'm hoping that they'll still allow the auditions to come on.
Yeah, interesting to see how it turns out.
I wish the Department of Education would hurry up and come up with their recommendations.
Gives you a
They
lot
stop
of
having some of
or double trouble. I don't envy their job.
I was just talking with my boyfriend about it, and I said, you know, what they're going to somebody's going to be and they're going to constantly say, I wish they Come on, wouldn't it be easier if we had Republicans?
Or have to agree.
Okay.
Looks like things are progressing.
Good, good.
I did, but I was uncontested, so I kind of expected it. And I said, November is really nice. But thank you. He is also uncontested. Teacher, I think.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know much about him.
Somewhere between.
I know he's originally from New York. That's about the extent of my knowledge.
He's different.
Jeremy was going to have him freshman year for honors, and then they switched videos around and ended up not.
Yeah. I'll flop around with Abby, you and Laura.
Oh, is that what
Last
happened? I'm curious to see how the English staff works when they lost Jackson. Because did your daughter have Jackson? He left with 1 month left in his school, and so Bailey took over.
Yeah, they gotta hire some people. I don't know what.
I'm this close to teaching certification to do the high school.
So what will you show course?
My concentration is mathematics. I teach math at the college level.
One of the best math teachers just left also. This year. Oh, there's 2 of them, they're brothers, and one of them left to be forestry. That was three.
Good for him.
And
Andrew, I think.
But she has to meet him. I'm trying to remember who did Jeremy have this year? There's a female math teacher.
Literally, you don't
I can't remember her name. But she was pretty good.
Oh, was it Breton? Older lady, Leslie Breton?
No, this was a younger teacher.
Somebody had a tricky maneuver.
She's in her first few years of teaching from what it seemed like.
My God, I love her. She's almost retired.
Oh, yeah, we didn't, no, he had one younger than us retired. But, you know, when they went remote, he said, he can't learn math remotely. And I said, I teach math.
Simone,
He said, no, you
yeah,
teach
she
math
did
at
that.
NCI. And I'm like, that's a good thing, it's called an effort. Saying, I wish you were teaching. I always know when he's struggling, so he'll come to me. Otherwise, he won't. Does she know what? I don't know, she said she was on her way. They sold their place in Plymouth, so I know they've been struggling with time, trying to move out. But she was in her car when I talked to her. I wonder if she's having an issue with the house.
Probably no sense in starting the meeting last week.
Dad was at the Emirates, which I'm sure your dad would know, avid flusher. And then she's
Probably end up renting it.
maritime.
Mhm.
How many years?
It has.
Yeah, they all know him.
Two stories.
To the second camp with it.
Oh, yeah.
Two stories, an apron. It is, hit road. About 3/4 of the way down. You ready?
Shut the door,
No.
put the lock in the back, so I say you have to shut
Yeah,
it.
for a while? Yeah, I'm gonna be here. This year.
We're gonna wait for about 5 minutes.
What's that? I gotta be back October 13th this year.
No, that's the right time of year.
Yeah, you can keep the winter. I live in Death Valley, California, so you can keep June, July, and August there. It was 128 there yesterday.
Sounds like you're doing this right.
Well, we'll find out. But yeah, so far so good. It's a good plan.
So we need four.
We have several folks on, I'm not sure who represents.
We read our laws, bylaws.
I live in
Yeah,
Shoshone,
7.
California,
She's
which
in
is the southeastern gate.
Right.
So the entrance to the park is 3/4 of the mile to the north. So we're the town, my town is 13 people.
Rejected.
So Millinock is the big city. But we've got a campground and gas station.
So we got 5 people.
Hotel, restaurant. It's really rough.
Yeah.
On the way in. So it's a little tourist town.
I didn't have to read through it.
And for years I
But
lived
it's
there,
there,
had
and
everything
I
happen.
hit the other side. And I said, well, you get it. That's the
Look at desert birds and desert wildlife.
It's got to have a bus, but he's got to stay
You
clean.
gotta have a majority of full
format, you totally get.
I know.
form them.
So I think my work full-time for the Navy.
Full analysis by swallowing and
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna vote to pass it,
Habitat restoration project.
It was, my throat was sore for a few hours after that too.
Live shows and environmental.
Then I'm going, oh my God, do I have
Well,
a
that's pretty challenging.
This is Lauren, she's our environmental manager.
Hi, Lauren. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
We went over.
Things to talk about tonight.
You voted on this?
Yeah, representative for this district,
This year?
the state.
Yeah. Did you get it out of it?
Well, I already knew I was going to win the primary because I was uncontested.
That doesn't mean you automatically win.
Nobody else had
I
registered
know.
as a, because I checked. Nobody else had registered as a writer, so I had what they call a clear path to November. And so did the Democrat candidate. Brown, I think is his last name.
Who?
Ethan Brown.
Oh, teacher's office.
The teacher at MCI, yeah. He also had a clear path to November.
It seems as
Well, you never know who's gonna come in.
Well, in November, we could have additional people because the independents can now get it. And we'll see, I have no idea. I haven't seen anybody register yet.
People are voting, I guess.
They're allowed to. I haven't seen anybody.
I don't know what town.
A friend of mine is running for state senate in Waldo County, and her and the person that she was opposing are so close they can't call it yet.
So,
Stan on already, Larry's not
It's
coming.
like, how's it going? Have you heard anything?
nothing happens, every, say 10 minutes or so, I'll call or text.
There is.
So you can switch over to
Just got some on there. Open development.
All right, very good, thanks.
I don't think so, I don't know. He's not connected.
She's on her end.
Yeah, I got
There's a
pictures.
computer speaker, but it's not very loud.
He's gotta be a counselor for a minute.
What's the latest here?
We'll try and break that record.
Why don't you bring it up? You put it, you know, you might show up at 7 o'clock. Or a quarter of it.
We have some Pittsfield cellular folks on as well. Well, I'm going to 490 Main Street, similar in here, but Pittsfield cellular.
Quiet, I'll do that, so do that.
Sure, sure.
He wants to know we should go down like you. Sorry. Sorry.
Don't sit down. Don't sit down yet. Call the meeting to order. If you would join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry for the delay. You'd probably be, I mean, most people are aware of this, but it's a different world right now. And so we'll see how this works. There's a whole bunch of people on the other side of this little screen here, and not just Joel, okay? Joel is filling in for Steve tonight. Steve had surgery yesterday, so he will not be here this evening, although he is online. So the challenge is going to be, including myself, that if we're talking, we have to talk a little bit louder, okay? So the people who are going to be on there, in fact, there's a presentation that's going to be on there a little later, so I don't know how that's going to work. But Joel is going to hit me on this side of my head if I do something wrong. Royce is the vice chair. Then he's going to hit me on the other side of the head. A couple of things, though, I want to indicate to you, and Royce is going to correct me if I'm wrong. We have 5 council members here tonight, and that's enough for a majority to hold a meeting. However, when it comes time for a vote, we have to have 4 in favor or opposed to something, in favor of, for it to pass, even though there may be 5 people here. So if the vote turns out to be 3-2 in favor of, it does not pass. Okay? That's not my rule, that's in the town ordinance. So that's kind of where we are at this point. I will take a motion for our adoption of the minutes from June the 8th, 2020. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes. Previous meeting.
Okay. The meeting of June the 8th, 2020. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Anna. Any questions or comments from council members? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And when we vote also, we kind of say aye. We need to remind you that you see those little red lights up there in the ceiling. This is being recorded, so if you have something nasty to say to me, keep it down a little bit so that it doesn't get broadcast. We have no public hearing tonight. We have a rather lengthy agenda, so let's see how this is going to work out. Under old business, we're going to start with the site plan review from Pittsfield Solar. You're on.
Thank you.
Could you introduce yourself also?
Yes. Thank you. My name is Cole Peters with Power Engineers out of Freeport, Maine. We are assisting Pittsfield Solar 1 LLC, undertaken by Sincarfa Solar LLC, and hopefully Carter McCann can hear us. He was to call in. Are you there? Is there some way that we can confirm he hears?
He's on.
Can he be
He is on
unmuted?
there.
He can be
hears
unmuted?
better. Yeah. And he just
You can't hear him.
the speakers. We can hear you, but we're just trying to figure out a way to amplify you.
Well, I guess, just as a refresher, I can go through the project if you wish very quickly.
If you would, please.
And we'll continue from there. So the project site is on Main Street, 490 Main Street. And in terms of what we've undertaken out there, the site is a mowed hayfield. It's on the south side of Main Street. Farnham Brook is in this area. It has a floodplain, but we're well outside of that. And the project is over on the east side of the site. There happens to be a sewer line on that side of the site, but we're not near that. Across the rear of the property is a CMP transmission line. And so, in terms of the proposed development, these plans are in your packet that was provided. Point of reference are the farm and existing buildings around that. This is at a different scale, inch to 100 feet, but the development plan is here. This being Main Street, here's the farmhouse and outbuildings, and this is at a scale of 1 inch to 60 feet. So the proposed development includes these solar arrays across the site. The CMP transmission line is back here. Some information that the planning board wanted was information on hydrants on the plan. They're now displayed. This is the sewer line I mentioned earlier. One other topic of discussion last time was with regard to property line in this vicinity. I believe, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but it was the Carmichael property, I think. It was pointed out to us that the deed identifies the property line as being a wire fence, and we've made that adjustment to the plan. Another issue that was identified of concern was the need for screening, particularly along the residential side of the site. There are a couple residents in this area, but rather than just plant behind those houses, this dark green line shows the entire length of buffer planting here. The storage units are in this area, but more planting in this vicinity with regard to where it can be seen from South Main Street. And then lastly, over at the west end of the site, if you recall, it is low here, and then there's a rise up to behind the farmhouse. So we're up on the higher ground, not down in the floodplain. But there was also concern with respect to one of the board members that was on the opposite side of Farnham Brook, and so here too screening is being proposed. These would be evergreen trees, 6 feet on center. So that's the highlights. I can address in more detail as you may want. So I'll just pause there for your input.
Do you want to?
I have a question. Yeah. So this is 2 of 5, right? That's this map here?
That's correct.
Okay. So you are placing these solar panels in its entirety?
Yes.
With it. So you're also putting it in wetland as well as on dry land?
Yes.
And that is not an issue?
That it is not. Another matter or another piece of information that we sent in the intervening time. The project has been approved by the DEP, and I provided that permit to Steve. Soon after it was issued, I believe on July 2nd. And the reasoning, admittedly, wetlands are an important natural resource. But not all wetlands are created equal, if I can put it that way. I'm a wetland scientist, and with respect to the different types of wetlands that exist, there's a very complex classification system called Cowardin et al. And it has 3-letter codes: palustrin, forested, palustrin, scrub, shrub. But the more common terminology that we're aware of are things like swamps, meaning a forested wetland, marsh, a wetland of cattail, bogs, they quake. But in terms of the type of wetland that exists out here, it would be called a meadow. And the meadow happens to be mowed. It's a hayfield. So with respect to the typical functions and values associated with the wetland, it is relatively low in terms of providing those attributes. Nonetheless, it's regulated by the DEP. Consequently, we had to submit a permit application under the Natural Resources Protection Act, but we provided a functional assessment, and the DEP has agreed that it is of low value and the project can be permitted.
Okay. So are you familiar with, I'm sure that you must be, I know I probably won't be able to find where I wrote it down, but it is oh, here it is. Solar site pollinator habitat assessment.
I'm sorry?
Well, it's where you plant around the panels so that you have 3 seasons of pollinator plants.
Okay.
And initially there's a bit of an expenditure up front, but yet in the long run there's no mowing required, and you create a sea of wildflower. And I was just wondering if you had any ideas on that. Maybe it's something you'd want to consider. It's the Pollinator Friendly Vegetation Initiative.
Okay. I was not aware of that. I think that, you know, I have been to the site, and, you know, recognizing that it is a hayfield, there certainly are flowering species in the hayfield that, you know, can provide, you know, flowering
Right.
for pollinators.
Because if not, you have to get in there and hay that, or
No.
how can you do that?
It stays as a hayfield will be done. And with the installation of these solar arrays, the haying may continue down in the low area, but the arrays will be there, and the mowing that would be required so that it does not overgrow or you know, natural succession.
Right.
Shrubs would come in, it will be mowed, but only once or so, maybe twice a year. And so that vegetation of the farm field will remain.
Well, if you want, I can write this down if you wanted to check it out. I mean, you know, initially it costs more, but afterwards you save.
Okay.
But you would still have to mow.
Solar pollinators.
No, you don't have to mow.
If you don't mow, it's gonna, as you said, invasive species of shrubs and trees and alders and things will come in naturally.
I'm not quite sure how that's dealt with, or if they get such a thick growth of what's desirable. But, you know, you can check it out.
Well, you know, your point you're making, Mr. Cody, is that there's a very classic process. It's called old field succession. And if a
So all the trees are going to seed and
yes,
come
so if
back.
a field is
or
left
this-
fallow,
Yeah.
you know, the alder seedlings will blow in, and I think alder would be a very prime candidate to come in there, and that would be problematic for a variety of reasons.
Right, yeah, okay.
So, I'm a little thick.
Yeah.
I thought I paid attention to your description last time, but how does this actually work, and what's the benefit going to be to the town?
If Carter is able to hear, and you're able to hear Carter, he can speak to your question specifically, but in the event that is not possible, another piece of information that was submitted, you know, there were a number of attachments submitted to Steve, and we have an FAQ that addresses what community solar is, but Carter can speak to that best.
So, good question. How does it work and what are the benefits? So, long story short, we're going to create this project here. It's going to generate revenue and savings in two ways.
These solar projects are exempt from personal and real property taxes. But the way the state of Maine operates is they will pay the town back 50% of what the town would have otherwise received in taxes. So they will receive tax revenue from the state for this solar project. The second way, and this is really kind of what this project is all about, is it's going to be a community solar project. So I know we touched on that in the first meeting a little, but it is complicated, so we'll try to explain it again here. What that means is a resident of Pittsfield, or really anyone within CMP territory, can sign up your home to receive credits from this solar project. The credits, I'll use an example, say your monthly bill is $100. The credits you buy from us would be worth $100, but you would only pay us $90. So you're going to save 10% per month on your electric bill. And what we do is, anyone in CMP is eligible to buy credits, but what we do is we give priority to residents of the host town. So in this case, we wouldn't, market it to other folks until everyone within Pittsfield that we've reached out to has had an opportunity to buy the credits. So those are the two big benefits. I will touch on one other program that I've personally been pushing for my company. We're going to give a scholarship, $5,000 a year for a graduating senior from Pittsfield. We've done that on 2 other projects so far, but that's something we want to continue to do for all of the towns where we have a project. Other than that, the benefits that you get are, it's a quiet neighbor. I think we touched on noise last time, but the equipment is about as loud as a window air conditioning unit, and they are kind of deep inside the site, so you really can't hear much of anything. That's in the literal sense of quiet, but also, this will never be houses, over the next 20 plus years of the project is there. So it's low impact. It doesn't need town services, doesn't need plowing, doesn't need utilities, and obviously it won't put any more kids in the school systems and cost dollars there. But back to the original question, how does it work? It's a community solar project, and it enables residents to save on their electric bill every month.
So normally when you do this though, do you folks own the property, or in this particular case you're going to be leasing the property, right?
Correct, we do either or. Our preference is to purchase the property, but I'd say about probably more than half of our projects are leases, because the landowner would rather keep the land, use the rest of their land for something else, and then get an annual lease payment over the 20 plus years of the project.
And I think one of the questions that was raised last time too is, okay, so we're into year 9, and things are not working out very well. And you guys decide to pull out. What happens?
So we've been in business since 2008. We have over 100 megawatts of projects in operations. This is 5 megawatts. But to answer the question, if we pull out, effectively what you have here is a power plant. So if we pulled out, there's going to be a bank, there's going to be an investor, there's going to be somebody who would want to continue to operate this project. All of the equipment has 20 or 25-year lifespans, if not longer. So after, say, your example, 9, 10 years, everything is still operating out there. Someone is going to want to run this. Let's say that doesn't happen. For whatever reason, everything goes kerplunk and we're defunct and gone. We will post a decommissioning bond that will renew every year. We'll pay to keep it renewed. We have the obligation to remove the system if we do, quote unquote, go away. If we don't, then the town could call on that bond, to the bank that we buy it from, there's the money to decommission the system. So that's like the ultimate backstop, which obviously we've never had to use, but really all towns do require that. Some kind of decommissioning assurance to make sure that if we did go away, there'd be money to remove the system.
And how many of these, how many of these are you involved in the state of Maine right now? Or is this the first?
Right now, none of them are built, but we're in permitting in, I believe, 6, and we have another 10 or so that are just in the pre-permitting phase.
I have a quick question. Who determines the value of the bond?
We gave a proposal in there, so we put an amount that has been accepted by other towns, but that there can be back and forth there if you have thoughts on the bond amount.
Do you have a question? The town did send this bond issue thing to our town attorney, and we got the response back yesterday. And I think one of the things that scared people the last time was, let's say the project all of a sudden stops. There are posts and things that are stuck in the ground. And I think many of us were led to believe that what happens is they just get cut right off at the ground level and everything else stays in the ground. So the property is really kind of basically, unless you're going to build a 45-story motel somewhere and put in a foundation, the property is kind of useless. And I guess my concern is that, and this is just a personal concern, you know, if the people who own the property and are leasing it to you feel comfortable with that, that's okay. But I've heard of I've done a little homework, I've heard of 2 scary stories in the state with some of these, and it hasn't been pretty for the property owners if things don't work out for them.
To that point, with respect to, and indeed this was raised at the last meeting, I think most specifically in regard to the agricultural nature of the field. And with regard to the package of information that was submitted since our meeting, if you have that in front of you, it would be the very next to last page of the package. The decommissioning plan was modified. It's on page 4 of the decommissioning plan, stage 3, and items 6, 7, and 8 speak to this point. And I'll read them. Decommissioning contractor will fully excavate / remove all driven posts or columns and haul them to recycling accordingly. 7 speaks to decommissioning contractor will remove all electrical equipment and haul them off for salvage. 8, contractor will break up the concrete foundations and remove the material from the site to be disposed of at a licensed landfill. So those are, you know, your concerns as of last meeting and how they've been addressed.
The letter from the attorney says, based upon the specific language in number 6 of stage 3, as well as the additional language that the driven posts will be hauled off by and to be recycled, this issue appears to be well covered in the plan. In addition, section 10.7 of the site ordinance makes the plan a condition of approval, and any changes to it would require an amendment to the plan, finally, so forth, so forth. The submission of the financial guarantee must occur before commercial operation commences. In reviewing the decommissioning guarantee ultimately provided, the town may want to make sure that either there is a specific line item for the removal of the proposal of the poles, or that there is a sufficient overall amount in the guarantee to cover this work. And then one other thing, the plan should be revised and I tried to look this up, the plan should be revised to resolve this ambiguity. The ambiguity is the applicant that will be responsible for the site work. And that's you guys, not the property owner. So I think that just needs to be, the wording needs to be checked there.
So that the wording is proper and reflects what is recommended there, can that be provided to Sincarfa?
I can give you that. I can give you this letter.
Thank you.
Because it just came in yesterday.
Yeah.
So, are we ready to go through the process, or anybody have any other comments or anything?
Just one other thing, I don't believe I mentioned it. There was a question raised with regard to FAA last time.
Right.
You know, since then, FAA has been contacted, has responded back that there are no issues, and that too was provided to the code enforcement officer.
Any questions from the audience at all? Royce, would you like to lead us through this thing? No, just kidding. I know you want to try out that mask. We could go to the finding of facts. We started to do this last time and kind of stopped after the first couple of items because there were a lot of questions. So, let me go back to, because I think this is what you said, item 8.2 under existing conditions. The application maps should show the locations of all the zones. Steve recommends showing all the zones in the submittal drawings for those two areas that are not going to be developed.
That they are displayed on the map.
Okay. And Steve also recommended that Steve is listening in, by the way, so Steve recommended that the applicant work with the Pittsfield Water Department to accurately locate the sewer and water lines, which I think you've done.
Yeah.
So if we turn to (8.2), after item H, 8.2H. So the question is, the planning board considers the information submitted to be sufficient, or the planning board considers requiring, which they've done that already. I think you said that, right?
Yes.
That you've gone to the Department of Conservation. So do we feel comfortable with saying that there's enough information there? Okay.
I mean, with respect to that specifically, I think it's very simple in terms of their species. It's a hayfield.
Let's say that again.
You have to unmute. Steve, you'll have to unmute if you want to say something.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
There you go.
I was wondering, Dan's voice is just a jumble. I really can't tell what he's talking about. Is there any way to fix the mic or whatever?
You want to put it on the table?
We could try moving it a little closer. Hold on. I assume it's this one. It's the most microphone will people.
And while I've got your attention, I guess, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. I wondered how the bond cost or figure will be figured, was one of my questions. The last blueprints I saw showed units in the floodplain zone, and I'm wondering if that was corrected. And then housekeeping wise, do we have an attendance list of who's there tonight?
Is it this microphone? Are you hearing that? Like I said,
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Steve,
Pardon me? Yes,
can you hear me tapping on that?
that's worse.
Okay. And that's worse?
Yep. I have the streaming on. I don't know if that's making an echo or not. Maybe I should turn the streaming off.
Did you get the first two questions that he asked?
I believe the first was with respect to the bond.
Yeah.
And I think Steve was asking how the amount was to be established.
Right.
And I think Carter can best speak to that, but I believe, that was raised earlier, and perhaps Steve did not hear that.
Yep, and I can answer that, and I can hear Steve just fine. So, Steve, we got quotes, and we've gotten really, really similar quotes for projects like this from a few of our contractors, and that's how we came up with the amount.
What is that amount?
I don't have it in front of me at the moment. It is in the letter that we sent after the last meeting.
Yeah, I read that letter word for word, and then when I printed it out, I didn't notice it was this time, but only part of it didn't print, but I don't know what that amount is.
Okay, let me answer your second one, and then I'll dig for it and let you know.
Okay.
I'm sorry, will you repeat your second question again?
We have, the plan showed units in the floodplain zone. And we talked about those shouldn't be there unless we want to go through all the floodplain permitting, which is time consuming.
Yeah.
So you were going to move those. I'm wondering if you did.
That we did. So I believe it was 3 tables and a bit of the fence. We just removed those tables and solar panels, pulled the fence line in, and Cole can speak to it and show the room that is on the drawing.
I would just begin to say, what is a zone amongst friends? And my point is that Steve is referring to the flood zone, and I believe he intends to mean the shoreland zone. And to that point, this is the flood zone, and here, and this is the low part of the site, and none of the project will occur in the flood zone. With respect to the zone that I believe Steve is trying to speak to, it's the resource protection zone, and indeed, this is the same location, and there had been 3 panels in that area. They have been removed, and the security fence has been pulled outside of that zone. So Steve's concerns have been met.
And Steve, I pulled the amount, so I apologize. It's not in the letter itself. It's in the last page of the decommissioning plan. That's the one that we revised to state that we're going to pull the post as completed.
Okay, go.
$39,902.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
A lot of this form that we have to go through doesn't apply to this situation.
I'm not an engineer. 3099 doesn't get much today.
Okay.
20 years down the road gets even less. But just a opinion.
Yeah.
I guess that would seem a little low to me to go in there and do all that work as well.
Unless you solar panels get valuable. I guess that would be a concern I would have.
Okay.
But I wouldn't know where to get a realistic number.
What's your time frame on this?
Well, in terms of when it's to be built, or your approval, or?
No, when you'd like to start.
Sorry?
When you'd like to start building.
I think potentially this fall.
Yeah, it would either be in the fall or the spring, so you wouldn't start or work too much during the winter, so the slips we use in the fall, we just wait until the spring.
Essentially, on that type of soil profile there, that ground, once it starts raining after September 15th, you're done.
Yeah, it's a scanning soil.
Yeah. I'm familiar with it, so.
Yeah, and I believe you said you actually farmed it.
Well, yes, for years I did.
Yeah.
And like a year like last year, you would have never worked it the whole year.
Yeah.
This year is a good year so far.
Okay, let's turn to section 9. Utilization of the site. Planning board considers the information submitted to be sufficient, or would you like additional information?
I would say sufficient.
Anybody sufficient? Simone?
Yes.
Okay. Next page. The adequacy of the road system, that's kind of really not an issue. Town issuing a building permit, any new driveway entrances to Route 100 will require a driveway entrance permit from Maine DOT. You got that right?
Yeah, yes. I've been working with Craig Cosbud at MDOT. We submitted a permit application for that on July 1st. I tried to speak to him today and was not able to get through. But as I understand these permits, even though I was the applicant on behalf of Sincarfa, it's issued to the property owner. And this gentleman who's working with the family understands that the property owners have in fact received the permit. I will run that down, but we've initiated things and very likely it's been resolved.
The landowner is actually on Zoom and says that she has received the DOT permit in the mail for the new driveway.
Okay. So under 9.2, the applicant will assume financial responsibility for improvements necessary to bring the level of service and the standard that will ensure the completion of the improvements with financial guarantees acceptable to the municipality. So that's part of your project. Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Not? Who said that?
I thought it was a question to me. Not trying to throw a wrench into it.
Access to the site. Yeah, thank you. Let's keep going for a second. Flip the page. We're still talking about access. That's not a real issue down there. I just want to make sure that something gets on record also, because I did see it myself. You talked about the access. This is for driving, but you did get permission from the FAA regarding airplane flights and stuff, right?
Yes, that's been submitted to the board.
Nothing about parking, nothing about internal vehicle circulation. Right? No parking layout, stormwater management. Want to just address that again?
Yes, on April 17th, we submitted it's called stormwater permit by rule application to the DEP, and that has been approved. And it's included by reference with this permit application, on the plan are shown where erosion control measures are to be employed, and there's lots of words describing it as well. These are from the DEP's best management practices for stormwater.
Okay. Not that we're going to have any storms, but
Yeah.
Okay, so on the next page, the planning board considers the information submitted to be sufficient. Okay. Erosion control, same kind of a deal.
That's addressed as well, yeah.
That's addressed as well. Natural vegetation or buffering is required, which you addressed with the trees and so forth. So we handled that after the last one. So is this, we can now say that that's sufficient. Groundwater protection.
There will be no extraction of groundwater. As Carter mentioned the last time, these solar panels are relatively inert. That's, silicon oxide. So there's no source of contamination.
Okay. So there's really nothing to check there. No radioactive material that you're aware of?
No.
Okay. Shoreland relationship?
We're outside the shoreline zone.
Okay. Solid waste disposal, will there be any?
None will be generated once it's operational. There could be some, construction waste, and that will be properly disposed of at a licensed facility.
Okay. The comprehensive plan states that sites along the Sebastopol River and at Sylvie Pond have been identified as archaeological resource areas. Means there's a lot of dead bodies. Excuse me. This site is not close to those locations, so we don't have to worry about that. Although if you dig up a pot of gold, does the landowner get that? But on a serious note, I think going back to what you just said and dealing with the traffic thing, I think we want to make sure that there's a distinction between the business and the property owner, and whose responsibility is it to make sure that the names are on certain documents. And so then there may be some more coming down the pike. Okay, so do we have copies of most of the other things that we need, that you guys need from the state?
I'm sorry?
Does the town have copies of the things that you got from the state of Maine?
Yes. We provided the DEP's permit to the town.
At the last meeting, we started that meeting that was a public hearing. And was that sufficient? So we don't want to have another one? No. Okay. So do I hear some kind of a motion?
Jim, I think that at the last meeting, go back to this technical and financial capacity. I thought that we had some questions around that, and I'm not sure that I've heard any solutions to that.
Yeah, indeed you did, Mr. Pollard. And there too, information, 2 separate letters were provided. One was very specific to the technical capabilities, and it stated May 29th. And then in addition, a separate letter specifically related to the financing plan. It was also submitted on the same date.
Yeah, I remember, I think we read this at the last meeting, but I thought there was some questions around it. I don't know. Do you remember exactly the details on that, Jim?
No.
Is this for me?
I'm just providing a letter if you want to look at it, but I believe it was already sent to Steve.
is this the first location for one of these from you guys in the state?
Has been another one permitted in the town of Corinna, nearby, of course.
Yes.
And indeed, I'm working with Sincarfa on other projects in other towns. Just the other evening, appearing before Wiscasset, and in fact, I could not be in two places at once. We have an appearance before the town of Reedfield this evening as well. And
Corinna approved theirs already.
yes, they have. Yes, they have. Yeah.
I think I saw that in the paper. So.
And in addition, I think somewhat related to this, you had asked for information, references to other projects.
Right.
And that was submitted, as we've been saying.
I'll go for it.
With any conditions?
No. No condition. I think it will float the way it is. No pun intended.
I could not hear other than no pun intended.
He thought it would float okay, as it is. Can we give approval on condition, some sort of condition if we examine the bond value?
Yeah, can we?
Yep, you can make a motion that approval is contingent on well, I don't know who you want to look at the bond. It's already been approved, it's already been looked at by the attorney, right?
Well, they just.
Well, theirs
was.
they had said that, approved that it should have a bond.
Yeah, they didn't talk about.
They didn't see no numbers.
They didn't have an amount. So if we were to give it approval based upon a review of the bond amount, what would you do with that?
I think Carter, I think we'd be happy with an approval, but I would want Carter McCann with Sincarfa to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, of course, and we're happy to work with the board, and if you want to bring in contractor, engineer, just to truth our number, and if that's a condition to the approval, we can work with you in the coming weeks, and hopefully it doesn't take months, but coming weeks to come to an agreement on the bond amount.
I would think that'd be sufficient.
Okay, everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
So make a motion, but I gotta write this down, so go slowly. So we're going to give, application, you getting this? Application
approval.
With tentative approval.
With tentative approval, pending review of the bond dollar amount.
Dollar amount. Everybody feel comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Is that legal?
Probably best worded as a condition of approved, but with a condition of approval. With just be the review of the bond dollar.
The question of who's going to approve the amount of the bond? Where are we going to come up with that number?
Well, I think if we get somebody to.
I think we could probably make a couple calls, not too far away.
Yeah. And if we get something, then Steve can take a look at it and say, this looks a little bit more reasonable.
The other thing, if we approve it conditionally, I guess we still have to, how are we going to know that the bond number is sufficient to follow through with that approval? You know what I'm saying?
You need to have an affirmative vote on the bond number.
Do we go for it now, or should we wait until we get the first? Should we wait until we get a number on the bond issue? I guess that would be my question, because if we approve it on conditions, how are we going to follow those conditions?
Why do you put a number on that anyway? I mean.
Well, he did put a number.
He
Yeah.
put a number?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I said. Why? When you can't know in 15 years what it's gonna cost, and what happens, have you ever had one taken down, and was there enough money to do it? I mean.
Well, there are engineering companies that decommission projects of all different types, and so they have an idea what they would work at. And usually they would have an adjusted amount for inflation or however you want to look at it over time. So basically, if you bought a bond for X amount of dollars, that would probably have to increase over time, the value,
Right.
because the dollar value is
But
dropping.
right up front, it doesn't sound adequate. So,
Not to us, but we're not in that business.
true.
But nowadays, 39,000 isn't much money, unfortunately.
I'm certainly not familiar with your practices. I understand the issue you're trying to wrestle with, and I can't pick a number.
No, and I agree. No.
But, yeah, as I look at the document, the findings of fact, might it be that on at the bottom of the next to last page, and at the top of the very last page, what you're trying to wrestle with is addressed there.
Yeah.
Wherein I'm thinking that I see form of guarantee on the next to last page, very bottom, and then the next page, it identifies 3 options, and the board would then have a choice of checking whether it is or is not required. And it goes on to say that the condition of approval, it needs to be accomplished before a building permit is issued.
The way I read it though, some places on a project like this, they'll have to have a bond starting the project. Once the project is finished, that bond goes away. And we're
This is
probably not as worried about that at this point as we are what might happen years down the road.
Yeah, again, point of clarification, he's talking about something that's starting right now. This question is dealing with what happens 10, 15, 20 years from now. So I think going back to page 2020, please check one of the following finds that an improvement guarantee is required. I think we want that.
Yeah.
And so that way it makes it easier that we can approve this application with the submission of some kind of a bond.
Yeah, there's the difference between money to complete the project, but you're talking about money for the decommissioning.
For the decommissioning.
Which is a separate
And
set of money.
somehow that decommissioning needs to be mentioned in that motion, and then I think people will feel more comfortable with it. So give it tentative approval pending a review of the decommissioning bond. Is that okay? Is that okay?
And I would think that should be able to be done relatively soon.
Yes. Does that make sense? You got that?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Oh, goodness. So, when is my electric bill going to start to go down?
Once it gets built.
Never.
Never.
Never, always go up.
Have you ever seen it go down?
Nothing ever goes down.
Is that unanimous?
It's down.
Yes, it was.
You want it to go down and move the Pacific Northwest?
So,
So
thank you.
So if you guys get something and then be back in touch when Steve gets back to
Okay.
But I think we want some way of looking at a figure for the decommissioning piece to kind of say, it may be, you start out this year with, what was it, 39,000 or something? you start out there, and maybe every 5 years, there's a percentage of increase or something, or, because, I mean, would you go out and buy that now for the next 20 years? Or would it be evaluated every once in a while?
I think, again, I defer to Carter.
I think normally the bonds are bought, and then, I guess I'm not into it enough, but, you know, that value amount will increase over time.
That's what I want to hear, Carter.
Yep, there's two ways to do it. Either we can post whatever the year 20 amount will be, so we can come up with an amount today, say it'll escalate at 2 or 2.5% per year, and that'll equal, let's use our example, $40,000 in year 21. Or we can, and we post that amount every year, because that's enough to cover your $21. Or we post today's amount, which doesn't have that inflation, then you inflate it at, say, 2 or 3% per year. That's a little bit cheaper for us, but we're also comfortable posting the higher amount, just to give you more comfort as well.
Okay. Okay. Sound good?
Yes.
Now, you want to get the heck out of here, don't you?
I'd rather read field real quick.
No, someone else is taking care of that for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate the time.
Was it the same deal over in Reedfield, you had a 10% discount, or I was going to buy credits?
I heard Reedfield had.
The same thing over there in Reedfield, it's 10% off your power book for your credits?
Yes, it's the company's practice, community solar. Yep.
Okay, the next item on the list is new business, Church of Christ, 245 Philip Corner Road, tax map 14, lot 38, request for a larger road sign, and it's not lighted, that should be crossed out.
One place it says not, one place it says
Yeah,
yes. I figured it out as well.
It's not a lighted sign, so,
Yeah, we originally wanted to have a 4x8, but I was informed that 16 square feet is the limit. And then I was informed that I could get a permission to have a 24 square foot. And we would be happy with that if you were able to agree to allowing us to have that size.
that's the only thing that we can vote on, is the last limit size that we suggested.
I don't remember, did it say what size it is currently?
Currently,
I believe it's 3x5.
Okay. So the new sign size is gonna be what?
4x6.
4x6.
any questions?
And did I read that that's a one-time only deal?
You can only change it one time.
Something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
And on the agenda for who knows when, we have some issues to deal, we have a couple of other sign issues in our, some of our guidelines we need to take a look at. So, do I hear a motion?
Well, somebody else do one.
Go ahead, Simon.
I make a motion that we approve it.
Okay. And the size was 4x6?
4x6.
4x6. So that's 4x6 is 24. And that's the maximum that we can give. Anything above that is against the ordinances. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other comments or questions? No, you feel comfortable with that?
I don't see where it says that's the maximum size.
It's in another,
It's in
it's in the book.
Chapter
the
13.
big book.
The big book.
The big book.
It's in this thing right here.
I was just looking at what was right
I could say it's in the Bible, but that might be a little.
Sacrilegious.
All set? All in favor of the request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
It was worth the wait.
Thank you very much.
That was it.
That's it. Okay, Steve will be back in touch with you with us.
Have a good night.
Who was that?
Jen, can I just check who made the second of the previous motion for the solar?
Tom,
Who made the motion?
Simone.
Okay, for the solar.
The solar.
Oh, for the solar. I made the original motion.
Yes, who seconded the original solar?
Was that?
Yeah.
Anna, thank you, sir.
Okay, the third item on the agenda is a discussion request for approval to build 2,502 square feet Walgreens store at 420 Somerset Avenue. I believe the folks dealing with this are online. So,
Hi.
We can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
yes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am Julio Williams, engineer with Covent Development. I'm here to speak on behalf of the applicant, FIDC Montreal LLC. Just a little bit about the project. We're looking to build a 2,500 square foot Walgreens pharmacy with a drive-through. That would entail removal of the existing structure that's on site. As I mentioned, it will have a drive-through, and a little bit about Walgreens and the project. They're moving to a new prototypical building model, which is called the Cooper. And essentially, this building is a smaller building, about less than a quarter of the size of what the older buildings are like. And the idea is to consolidate their retail into mostly a pharmaceutical. So it's a drive-through a pharmacy essentially. We will have parking, utilities, site lighting, and landscaping as well. The site is located within the C2 Highway Commercial District, so we are compliant with that and all of the zoning regulations. I can answer any other questions. Just status, we have submitted site plans and applications and fees for site plan approval from the planning board. We also have submitted to the DOT and the DEP, and the review of those applications are pending. And that's in essence an overview of the project. We are, I said that I know that Walgreens is looking forward to start the project, and they're excited to build it quickly. And we believe that it will be an enhancement for the corridor.
Richie Pellegrino is here. Richie owns the property. Do you want to say anything at this point or not?
I didn't understand half what he said. Like, it's so important, why aren't they here? So, and the other thing, they can only use the front 200 feet. It's that important. The rest is going to remain green space. I hope they understand that, because I'm not signing anything if that isn't the... That's already addressed, Richard. Yeah, I hope it's addressed. I don't know anything about this project. I'm a little upset. I really don't want to sell the property, but I answer to a higher authority. So... And this is the first time, they have a store, I don't know why they need another second store in the town. But, a little aside, years ago I offered to give that property to the town of Pittsfield, okay, free, as long as it kept green space. Dwight Dougherty was for it. I've sent Catherine 2 or 3 emails, she's never answered. I would have preferred doing that. But I'm almost 80 years old. he says we gotta start slowing up. I can still do 50 push-ups, so I don't think I have to slow up, but anyway.
You want to look at a copy of the plan?
I gotta take that with me, I've never seen it. I'm in the dark here.
What's this fellow's name?
You have to remind us of your name, so I've only got you as Coca Development on the Zoom.
It was, I heard, I wasn't able to hear everything that he said, but I did pick up the tone of the message. If you could please tell me, like, who he is, and is he a neighbor?
He's the property owner.
Oh, he's a property owner? Okay. And what was his concern? I wasn't able to hear. Maybe you can come closer to the microphone, that would help.
Well, let me see if I can paraphrase it, if that's okay, Richie. He's concerned about the project because it's his property. One of the things that I heard was missing from the plans was that the property was supposed to be divided, and that was not part of the plan that was submitted to Steve Seekins. That looks like the whole property. And I think his concern was that just he hasn't really been involved in a lot of this discussion, although it's his property. Go ahead.
Well, my name is Alfred Bacharach. I'm an attorney in town. I represent Richard and Patricia Pellegrino with the property owners. And I'm familiar with the contract that they signed to convey this property. And because of zoning regulations and other reasons, this property cannot be divided, and therefore they are selling the entire property to 2 acres or something. However, they are going to retain an easement on the back end of the property, way behind the store, where there's a pond and grass, and preserve it as a nature area. That's not part of the applications before you. The applications before you is what Walgreens or their developer intends to do with the front of the property, the first 200 feet. And I'm sure they'll do a good job, but they'll only do something on the first 200 feet. The back end of the property, going down behind other residential, other properties, it's an 1.5 acre piece of property, I think, will
2 acres.
Be kept as 2 acres, be kept as green space and maintained by Richard. Or if, God forbid, the town changes its mind and wants to have that and take it over as a green space, it would make a nice park. But that's not before you. All that's before you is the front part, which is going to be developed, not the back end of it. But it will all be owned by the buyer.
Now, what's the time frame on this? When is this project supposed to get started?
We're looking to start, I would say, as soon as we were granted approval, I can see us starting within the next couple of months. Yeah, this is something that I believe we're trying to get contracted this year.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I've got to say something, and I'm not trying to be a smart guy here, but with the plans that you sent, you misspelled Somerset Avenue.
I'm so sorry, no excuse.
Okay.
I deserve that.
My name gets misspelled all the time, and so I've gotten used to it, but it would have been nice if that had, okay, apology accepted. On this one, folks, I would like to suggest that we have a public hearing first.
Are they closing the other store?
Are you going to close the other store?
Yeah, I want to take something.
I'll get you the full set.
It's a possibility, and I'm speaking just a little bit out of place, but I believe that Walgreens' intent is to move towards these newer, smaller buildings. Usually that happens when the terms of the existing Walgreens are nearing an end.
In other words, what I think he just said was the lease is up on the building, right?
possibly, yes.
Another empty building, another box store.
Since Walgreens bought out Rite Aid, a lot of the business model has changed. I got a daughter that works for Walgreens. And they've changed a lot of things.
Yes, they have. I think before we make any decisions, I think we need to have a public.
One other thing, if I want, and this is not just as a citizen, but when the Walgreens bought out Rite Aid, they ended up with duplicative stores in many cases. Like in Portland, they had overlapping stores, too many of them, and they proceeded to close several of the less profitable stores. So if they're now changing the business model or looking at too many stores, and they've got one in Newport, and they want to close this one in Pittsfield, if they close it and don't build another one, we're going to lose the pharmacy. We're going to lose a Walgreens because they have enough of them. So I think it's glad to see as a taxpayer that they're interested in building a new store, which indicates to me they're not going to close this one down and rely on the one in Newport or move out of town, like the banks did when they consolidated. I mean, TD Bank is gone, and Skowhegan Savings Bank is gone, and if you don't replace these businesses with a new version, you lose tax revenue and you lose that business. And that's why I think this, from a public citizen standpoint, should be supported, because it's the only way you're going to get them to stay, I think. I don't know that. I don't represent Walgreens, but it would seem to me that they don't get to build a store where they want, they're going to close this one and put it somewhere else, or don't put another one here at all.
I think one of the reasons they're probably moved, one of the other reasons they want to get into a smaller store is because the business model's changing. At big stores probably less efficient and things of that sort. So a lot of what Alfred said, I think, holds true. Personally, I don't have a problem with the plans and everything, but I can see putting it out for public hearing.
That's a good point. We're kind of handcuffed. We won't have a pharmacy.
I mean, you already have a Hannaford that isn't a Hannaford. I changed insurance plans. I'm on Medicare, so I went to Martin's Point. They have a preferred pharmacy. It's Hannaford's. But Bud's is not Hannaford's anymore, so you have to go to Newport. And if the Walgreens closed, you would not have a place to buy a prescription in Pittsfield. And they want to get moving fast, so I don't know when the lease expires, but it's obvious they want to build during the summer and fall when the building season is, and not wait another year.
Jan, what would be the purpose of delaying a reply pending a public hearing? What compels us to?
Well, I'd like to see what the building is going to look like in a little bit more detail. And I really wish that somebody had come, that there was somebody local. We've had a couple of these before where they've been from away. And I just think if you want to, I don't know, I just, I don't know.
So what you're saying is if they're interested in being part of the community, they should be here.
Yes.
They're not. They're based in Illinois. They don't care.
I'm sorry, I didn't
They
know.
don't care.
Well, they care enough to put a building in.
They care enough to make money, but they're not going to come from Illinois.
Travel conditions aren't ideal. I understand things of that sort.
Yeah.
As far as everything in the proposal is up to date as far as what we would require, correct?
Yes.
So the public hearing would be just for input.
John, is that okay?
Hello?
What?
He's wondering if he can address the.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Just, I heard something about, the application, possibly, going before a public hearing. If I may, just, my 2 cents, our request obviously is to, obtain a final approval tonight. A couple of reasons. One that comes to mind, as far as like the site, it's a very narrow site. So we probably wouldn't be able to change much from what you see in the plans. So like, if we're going to move forward, it's probably going to be with this set of plans. And then the other item is that, as I mentioned, we're looking to start as soon as possible. And you know, as you know, obviously, the sooner we start, the sooner we can finish, and then avoid the rush that usually happens in November with trying to finish projects. So, if possible, we would really appreciate the request to obtain that final design approval tonight, and not have to do it before the public hearing next month.
Fred, so you're working on the contract.
Yes, I represented the Pellegrinos in negotiating the contract.
How are they gonna make sure that the green space remains a green space?
There's gonna be a deeded easement. We cannot take the back end of the property off and keep it out of the deed, because the parcel is not possible to be divided given the zoning laws. However, we can take an easement on the back end, which allows Richard to continue to maintain it and continue to be responsible for keeping it as green space. And if he passes on, it goes as part of his estate to whoever his heirs are, or it could go to the town, but they will not be using that back end, because Richard is keeping it. It's going to be right in the deed. It's in the contract, and it's going to be in the deed. So there's no question, nothing bad is going to happen in the back end of it, you know? No. And the plan, I think, speaks for itself as far as what's going on the front end. Obviously, I didn't prepare it or see it, and it is a site that isn't used, so I don't know what modifications can be done, if any, but everything I've been told is it's a pretty viable plan. You have it before you, so you would know.
Did you want to say something?
You know, I think it's going to be an asset to the town. I have no problem there. But I just put it historically. My wife's owned the property for 54 years. I've worked it for 48 years. I'm an emotional Italian. And, you know, just to put it in perspective. And I have a beautiful pond back there. More important, I have a pet cemetery back there. And no amount of money is going to pave over that pet cemetery. And as I said, as far as the finances, all it's going to do for me is give me tax problems. I have more money than I'm ever going to use anyway.
And I told Richard he'd give me the money and I'd pay the taxes.
That's all it's going to be, because people don't realize that there's no shelter if it's not your home. So right off the top, 27% of that's gone. 7 to the state, 20 to the feds. I mean, that's okay.
And Richard may be 78, but he still needs a retirement project.
Yeah.
So he's not going to give up his right to landscape this and mow the lawn and plant the flowers and make the nature.
I've been doing it for 48 years over the years, and if anyone saw that property, it's a nice property. It could be a park.
And his big problem on this whole transaction is how to move his man cave, which is that house, across the street into Forest Park, so he can continue to have a place to go to. As he calls it his office.
It's a safety valve on my marriage.
Yeah, and Patty needs a place.
Moving right along.
I'm honest about it. I tend to be a pain in the ass. So I go over there and I give my wife a break.
It's Richard's big dog house is what that house is.
I'm trying to save the house, but it's been a problem. And again, the higher authority wants it torn down, I want it saved. So I have a feeling it's going to be torn down.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be built in the zone it's supposed to be built. you know. Personally, I don't see any problems with doing it, you know, public hearing, there'll be comments, good or bad, but I can't see anything even on a public hearing that was gonna change what's in the application.
Yep.
So if there's not going to be a public hearing, I want to be able to make these comments. And I'll wait till after it gets decided whether it's going to be a public hearing or not.
Let me just look through Steve's notes. Fred, when's the closing?
Well, I can't even remember the exact date, when you approve it. Basically, we had a contract closing date well before this, but because COVID-19 shut down all planning board meetings all around the state, all of the contracts ended up being continued for a different period of time, usually to a time, some days after the
August
planning board.
21st.
So it looks right now, if we're on track, that it would close in about a month.
Yeah, August 21st is the contract.
But that's subject to commitment by the 21st of July.
Approval has to be 21st. The sale will go through August 21st.
Okay, so do you have this in your packet?
Yep.
Okay, so let's turn the page. Let's turn to page 9. Okay, the first item that's, I'm reading Steve's notes, okay. That the building inspector recommends requiring closed-top dumpsters. That the building inspector advises that driveway must be at least 5 feet from the property lines, and the driveway entrance permit from the Maine DOT will be needed in advance of the town issuing a building permit. Has that been done yet, do you know? Has anything been done with the state?
They are working to finalize the plans as we speak. So they haven't submitted as yet, but I know they're within the next week or two from submitting.
Okay. Keep going down. Another thing that he highlighted: proposed signs must meet Chapter 13 standards. That's the stuff that we just went through before. Sign permit will be required from the building. An estimate of peak hour and daily traffic to be generated by the project.
Typically, Walgreens expects somewhere between 150 to 200 prescriptions to be filled per day. And as far as the estimate, the documents that we submitted, that was documented. So to answer your question, as far as traffic, we're expecting 150 to 200 per day to be accessed to the site.
Okay, you're not familiar with that area. That area receives a lot of discussion about traffic because of some things that have been added down there. This is going to be a little bit out of the way of that, but I'm assuming at some point in time there's going to be something that may go in that old building, which really could present some. We need a traffic light there, so we need.
Which building?
Well, with the
Where they are now.
Steve Seekings just wants to speak. You need to unmute, Steve. I know. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. We approved the area almost identically back here a while ago for a bank. The driveway basically in the same position. It had the same issues with lighting, protecting the neighbors. So we've kind of been through it once. It just was a bank instead of a pharmacy at the time.
Okay. Steve, have they seen your findings report?
Have they seen my what?
Your
Findings of fact.
finding of fact document?
Yes, that was sent over a week in advance of the meeting.
Okay, and you feel comfortable, have they responded to that? Because you've got some things highlighted.
All I've done is give them the information. Their responsibility is to do the responses and bring them to you.
Okay, which they,
What?
which they really haven't done yet.
No, unless they've got them with them tonight.
No, we don't have them with us tonight. We would request them, and resubmit them, to Steve.
Well, you know, if I can talk again, it's quite plain if you read the first page of the application. This is also intended to provide the applicant with a notice of additional information that may be required by the planning board. So that's the purpose of doing this, to tell you what you need to do and hopefully make it go through for you.
What do you want to do, guys and gals?
Okay, so the application to the DOT and, so all the applications aren't in yet, right?
Right.
We just make everything conditional, on having all the applications in place.
Okay.
Like I said, like Steve said, we did go through it with the bank.
So I think what Royce is suggesting is that we give it tentative approval based upon the submission of everything that they've been notified to do?
Yes.
Is that okay with everybody?
Did we agree on the public hearing matter first? I think we need to-
No, and I don't know.
To make a decision on that before we
Is it
go to the
possible to
minute.
open the floor to comments?
Sure. Go ahead.
I have some comments.
Go ahead.
So I think Walgreens is a good asset to the community, but I think it's a terrible location to try and cram that in between another business and another residential property. And it also will further congest and make terrible trying to get in and out of the other businesses, as we already have one congested, terrible place with a lot of accidents. As well as we'll have a vacant building in town. They're already in a location.
Well, we're gonna have the vacant building anyway, right?
Yeah.
I'd just like to make a quick comment too. We already have the traffic issue with the current Walgreens. The traffic's just gonna move.
You
I
get two
mean,
locations.
he's talking, no, because they're gonna close the other one. That's
Yeah,
what
we
this
don't-
is.
we don't know
Do
what
we
we're
really
there.
want to lose our pharmacy in town? I don't wanna have to go back to Walmart for my pharmacy.
No, I call that a threat, and I don't appreciate that as a resident.
But I think and I don't know for a fact, but I think the new business plan is in that current Walgreens, they sell all, as far as I'm concerned, all this garbage.
Well, we have a.
And they're gonna do away with most of that stuff.
Well, we have a vacant bank right in the plaza. They can move in there. Expand it and move right there, and then it has the same entrance.
You mean the little bank right there in the parking lot?
That's another kettle of fish, because then you gotta negotiate with the owner of the property.
That's a terrible place to try and stick a business at this point in time.
Personally, I don't see a traffic problem with the location of the bank.
No,
Traffic
no.
problems come when you've got intersecting roads and intersecting driveways. And you have all along Somerset
Well,
Avenue.
you have it intersected between Shop and Save now and the dollar store, and now you're gonna add that one right next to it.
It's right next to it, but it's not an intersection between them.
Have you tried getting it out of there, or in the Hyatt?
I can't get out of any place on Somerset Avenue. I can't even down to my house on Park, I can't get out of that road.
I live on Somerset Avenue and I have a heck of a time getting out.
It's not the businesses, it's the traffic on the road.
And I have an office
I
on
could
Somerset
too.
Avenue, so, and I don't think it's that bad, but I'm not saying it's not worse where the current Walgreens is, but the problems you have for traffic at the current Walgreens are unique to that location. It's a location that I've done a lot of title research and a lot of work on, and it stems from the fact that you can't have a highway entrance, a DOT entrance, within 300 feet or where of a interstate exit. So you can't have an entrance into Walgreens where you would want to have one, so you can pull directly in the parking lot. Instead, you have to go down Somerset Avenue easterly till you get to in between the gas station and Walgreens, and then you turn into the gas station and do a U-turn into Walgreens. And that's all precipitated by the requirement that you can't have an entrance within the interstate entrance. And that's why you have traffic problems there. And that has nothing to do with traffic further down. The Family Dollar, I go in frequently. If you find 4 or 5 cars in the parking lot, it's a busy day. I don't know how that business stays in business, quite frankly. There's hardly anybody in there. So that I don't see as a terrific traffic generator. And of course, when you took that Walgreens entrance, where the old Walgreens is, and put the credit union, which is a high volume place, across the street immediately from it, that creates the intersection that you're talking about, that creates the problem. You won't have an intersection down past the Family Dollar where this place is going to be.
That's what I'm saying, no, you get the motel only. Nobody goes there.
Have a conflict, like good.
And an estimated 200 prescriptions per day.
Like that site was approved. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that site was approved for a driveway with the same foot as the one that's proposed.
Yeah, like they were saying, we did approve it for the bank.
Terrible location. I'm happy.
What are your wishes?
To go over again, what permits are missing?
Well, the transportation one. Assuming that it's gonna have to be some things with, the DOT, there's gonna have to be some environmental protection kinds of things done there. So. Sign.
You say it's fine?
Well, they have to do the sign.
Yeah, okay, that's not a problem, but they do have to apply for the sign.
They did submit a parking plan, so that's in there. There's water supply, unless Richie's screwed up the water main.
No, I just spent money putting a new water line in a year ago.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no sewer up there unless they want to pump it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
I have a leach field, but they couldn't pump it. The bank said because the line goes by, it's a pressure line.
Yeah, I don't know where the sewer line is, but it does go.
I know where it is, because we banged into it putting the water line in. So, we found out.
There's no surer way to find it.
No. So they could pump into the sewer, whatever they want to do, but they won't need much of a leach field for a small
Okay.
business. Family Dollar put a leach field in.
Okay, speaking of Speaking of all this,
We are planning to fund it.
No, there your answer, so.
okay, the building inspector recommends that the applicant obtain a letter from the Pittsfield Water and Sewer Department pertaining to the town's system's adequacy to service the proposed use. So,
That's in the package.
that's in the package. Let's,
Question, what you're thinking, did you approve or disapprove a site plan, a site plan review and a, public hearing? Were those decided it wasn't needed?
we haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
Somebody want to make some kind of a motion?
I would make a motion pending, make a motion to approve pending submission from DOT,
The recommended areas.
recommended, you know,
Environment.
and DOT, environmental and sewer, you know, other than, those are three major things that,
Well, and most of the other, there's some other things that Steve.
yeah, the covered dumpsters, you know, that's, we've dealt with that in that design permits.
Is there a second?
Second.
So just, we're not gonna have a site plan or a site review or a public hearing. That's off the table.
Any comments? Fred, you want to add anything?
You didn't expect to say anything in the first place.
Yeah, but you're an attorney.
I would only echo what you said. I don't want to lose a pharmacy in town.
Also, I think that with the demand for commercial property right now, that building won't stay empty long. Because we're constantly hearing that there's not enough places for businesses to go in. Town council meetings.
Did the neighbors get a letter next door?
Yes, all the property lines within 250 feet of their property lines were notified with a letter
No objection. Okay.
of this meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Richard,
I'm not sure we have a sign-off block on the plans. Don't think we do, unless they can tell me where it is.
We set something in, the latest version should have something on the right-hand side, lower right-hand side of this cover sheet. If not,
That would be rolled up in my office, so I guess we didn't get it down there.
No, I think we brought it down.
It's down here.
No, that's solo.
But here, the plan doesn't have an elevation, so we don't know what the building looks like.
I've been someplace recently, seen one of these new buildings. It is quite more compact.
Yeah. Well, 20 square feet. Some people like to see it built.
That's not.
So there's something that you guys have to sign off on, but we don't have it.
Yeah, we don't have to.
We'll have to do that.
You'll have to call it in.
We haven't found it, Steve, but if hopefully it is up in our office, I guess.
I believe it's rolled up in one of the rolls that's on top of my two file cabinets. My office isn't very big, you can't get too far.
Bring it into his office.
I apologize for not being able to make the meeting. I had medical issues and I just couldn't do it.
All the permits have to be in place anyway, so it's not like.
Yeah, it's not like it's gonna be approved until after everything, you know.
Yeah.
So even if we don't
So
sign
we
it.
can vote it.
So basically, tentative approval on all permits being in place.
Yeah, all the permits.
Well, don't we have to do a findings of fact?
Right, that's what's missing. That's the stuff that I read from Steve.
Right.
And he said that, you know, parking has been done, the driveways have been done before, so that should
Yeah.
just be, and I think the model is based upon the same as it was for the bank, or it appears to be, let me put it down.
If we don't find it, you know, I just have to have all of the planning board members come in the office, one at a time or together or whatever, and sign it, but just a little more trouble for the board, that's all.
Yeah.
The worst case, we can connect it to them individually and with return receipts back to us until they're ready.
Is there a picture that we could get to see what it's gonna look like?
We submitted a rendering of the building, should be in your package. And it's got two elevations with color rendering.
When did you submit that?
I want to say there was one submitted last week by Phil Storer in the architect's office.
Originally you did submit one and somehow I misplaced it. And I talked with you when you were gonna bring one with you tonight or have one delivered. I didn't get it in my email. And so I suspected it might have been, you know, upstairs in the office delivered to something.
I see.
Did you get it? You got it?
One at the front.
Alright.
Access into it.
You come with the chamber. It's not here, so.
I found a site online if you want to see it. One that's already been done. I think that's awesome.
Walk around.
I will. This is what one looks like.
I've seen one before.
I know I've seen one somewhere too, which is why I figured there were pictures online. Does anybody else want to see?
What do we got?
They never sent an elevation.
What do we got?
Another picture, a picture of another similar small building.
An elevation plan.
Would you like to see?
Sure.
Sorry, it's going dark.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just a little small.
Did you hold on to the camera?
Yeah, hold on, Steve.
I'm gonna jump on the desk.
No, not really. Can you see it?
No, it's glaring. But I'm tipping it a little bit sideways.
Is that better?
Yeah, it looks a little better. I think that it looks like the one that I lost. I admit that I did that. There you go. That's what I wanted people to see.
I'm the only one that can see that. So how big is that one in the office, Steve? Is it rolled up in large format? Because that's what I'm looking for. Okay.
Right back in the corner.
While we're waiting, so you can come back, okay? Catherine or Heather, there's a little letter on your desk.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
So if you would kind of look that over, and they're kind of anxious to get started.
I'm good right here. Doesn't have a very good view on video, is it?
No, that's all right. That's the same picture.
Find anything bad, unfortunately.
Can't find it.
Yeah.
All right, can't find it, so depending upon what the outcome of the vote is, you'll have to come in and sign. Remember, we have the plan, we have to sign the vote.
Yeah. That's fine.
So if there's no other questions or discussion, I will hear a vote. All those in favor of giving tentative approval, conditional approval based upon submission of the things that need to be submitted.
Aye.
How many? Say aye out loud.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed? I'm going to oppose this. Okay? You can put me down for that. So when my drug bills get cut off.
Will you repeat the vote, please? I didn't hear whether it was approved or not.
4 to 1, was that?
5.
5 to 1.
5 to 1?
Yes.
So that carries.
So it carries. So we'll get paperwork ready, but we've got some stuff coming from them, so. Okay, next item on the agenda. So, any other questions, Richard?
To address this man's concern, there's only a few pieces of commercial property left up there.
Yeah.
Mine, Gary Missouri's, adjacent, and the house in front of the car wash. So I'm saying that there's gonna be, if the town's gonna develop, there's certain pieces that have to be developed. My neighbor has a small lot, because I referred Walgreens to him first, because this would change his life. It's complicated mine, but he has a very small lot, it's only 100 feet deep, so that's the story there.
Okay, thank you.
So, they're looking for some lawn to mow, one of them.
I'm going to show you something. 78 years old. 78 years old. That's what lawn mowing does for me.
Hey Fred, can you get your client out of this?
That was my role of Lion King.
We both have another lawn mowing job right down the road. We'll swap over.
We'll take it.
No, just put sweet nitrogen iron over that.
What's that? We'll take just a second or two.
Catch your breath.
Okay, next item. Somerset Solar requests the approval to build a 4.98 megawatt, is that what that is? Okay, whatever those numbers are, facility at 500 Somerset Ave, tax map 11, lots 30, 34-1 and 35. You're on.
Love to introduce who's here.
Sure can.
First, thanks for having us. I know it's a long night for you, and I'd love, we'd love to go pretty expeditiously, and then understand Steve and yourselves have looked at our submission and probably have some direct questions. And after we go through a pretty brief overview, we'll turn it over to you for questions and try to be real concise and direct and get you out of here in good season. Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay, good. My name's Parker Hamlock. I've worked with Kimbrough for almost 40 years. I said the last time I was in this building, it was under less favorable circumstances when I was 23. But the group we'll go to here is Corey's the project engineer on the project. Corey lives in Pittsfield, and he's going to give you an overview of the facility. And then Lauren, who has been with us, and we stole her from the DEP to manage all of our environmental permitting issues, and she's going to go through the environmental permitting effort we've been in and give you some history there and some confidence. And then Rick Leonard in this corner is our director of finance. And he and I will answer questions that you have, and we'll all answer questions, but we're here to support these guys. So we love pass it to Corey, let him go through. Lauren will follow him about the environmental permitting, and then we'll open it up, Jan, to questions, if that's a good format for you.
That's fine.
Great.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Corey Rowley, like Parker said. I live in Pittsfield on Peltoma Avenue. I know a few of you. I've been at Kimbrough 15 years as a project engineer. We do appreciate everybody sticking around on a long agenda here tonight. What we are proposing is a 4.98 megawatt AC solar project, very similar to Sincarfa's proposal. I'm just going to take my mask off here a little bit so I can speak. The project is right behind the existing Walgreens store that we just spoke about in the Carriage Estates Mobile Home Park, and the highway exit right here. The zoning, as you can see, I guess everybody can see, the front half of the project is in the commercial highway zone. The rear half is in the industrial zone. That's your zoning map. We just took a copy of it. It's a little green looking, but the best we can do. Then we move on to the site map. This project is about half the size of the Route 2 project. Big difference on this project is the power on that project was already sold under a contract. Very similar to the previous proposal tonight. We'll be selling power on the net energy billing program. Apologize, I don't speak in front of a group very often. Let's see. The Pittsfield residents, the same as Sincarfa, will be given the first priority at giving the credits to buy the power. I know everybody here is familiar with Kimbrough. Our intention is to enhance the town's renewable infrastructure and put a lot of people to work during the construction. Without degrading the town. We won't be using the town's resources, the schools and the fire and police and so forth. Let's see. I'm going to turn it over to Lauren. She's going to speak about the environmental procedures that we're going to go through and the permitting process so far.
Hello, everybody. Lauren Walsh. So, just to give
give a brief overview. We have applied for all of our permits. I believe you folks have in your packet the receipt of complete application submittal from DEP for both the Natural Resource Protection Act permit and the stormwater permit by rule. So this is a project that will be under 5 acres of developed area total, so it qualifies for the permit by rule process.
I want to say that just one more time.
Sure, it's under 5 acres of total developed area, so it qualifies for the stormwater permit by rule process. So a little bit about the permitting process in general. We have been working pretty closely with both Maine DEP, Jim Beyer, who heads up the solar permitting for the state of Maine with DEP, and also Sean Mahaney with Army Corps of Engineers. We have an Army Corps of Engineers application packet in as well at this point in time, and that's been accepted. The Natural Resource Protection Act permit application, there's a binder that I gave Steve a couple weeks back, and that's basically the same application packet that the Army Corps of Engineers has as well. So the reason for that is we do have some wetland impacts. The site, as you see here, with the panel layout, these kind of shaded areas right through here, they're actually up in this area. You can see them a little bit more clearly, are wetland areas. Right now, they have some hydric soils. We had a wetland delineation done. The first review was back last fall, and we had a confirmation review this spring. So the soils are hydric. There's some wetland plants, but mostly it's forested. It has been harvested probably more than once over the years. You can see some skitter trails throughout the wetland areas. Jim Beyer with Maine DEP is actually going to come out and take a look at it tomorrow. So he knows the wetland impact area. He's going to look at what our proposed plan is for construction as well. So moving on to that, we plan to clear in the winter time. We're hoping for this winter, so when ground conditions are frozen, that way we limit the impacts to those wetlands. We are only clearing them, so we'll clear them down to roughly, a few inches above the ground, enough so that we can get equipment in and get vehicles in. The wrapping system will be on posts, as you've heard from the previous project proposal. Those posts will be placed around stumps as much as possible. If there are stumps that need to be removed, we'll remove those stumps, and those are accounted for in the Natural Resource Protection Act permits. Hopefully all this will take place during frozen conditions, so we can limit any runoff issues related to construction activity. If not, then we would use timber mats, which is a standard practice to limit impacts to wetlands, to get across the wetlands. That's all in our narrative within the NERPA permit application, or we can also provide that as well.
On stumps that would be in the way, should removing stumps, just you move them or just grind them in place?
It would depend on the size. So, worst case, they'd be fully grubbed, which Army Corps of Engineers and Maine DEP considers that a direct impact, whereas every other impact is a temporary impact. That's what triggers the level of notification. The site itself is pitched correctly for us overall, so there will be very limited grading done. We're not proposing any grading in the wetlands except for the access road, which would run along the top, and we've proposed using some, I call them rock burritos. I think some other folks call them rock sandwiches, to keep the drainage from those wetlands flowing in the appropriate direction. Just basically fabric with rock in the middle, rolled up so the water can go through. Yeah, so the drainage flows directly towards this larger wetland area that is along the interstate. That wetland area, I think, flows into some other areas around the industrial park that are preserved. So we'll maintain that preservation piece. Fence line. I think that's just about it for the construction piece of it. Earlier you were talking about and heard about vegetation management for post-construction. So once we're all done with the site, restoration will happen usually most likely the next growing season. And any wetland areas that we did impact would be restored with a wetland seed mix. And then the upland areas obviously would be seeded with a low growth, usually wildflowers and whatnot. We've done that up at Pittsfield Solar up on Route 2 as well. So they would be trimmed. We'd have to keep the larger capable species down so that they wouldn't grow up into the panels. So they'd be trimmed a couple of times a year. Pittsfield Solar, we have a deed allowance in there that we could use goats. So you can, DEP allows the use of small livestock to maintain vegetation as well. Never know, who knows, we might have some goats there. Still possible at Pittsfield Solar though.
So that could be an adopt the goat project.
Who knows?
We don't need the goats banging on panels.
You don't want them
And they put
climbing
the
up
goats
the
in there.
No, but in general, the natural wetland habitat would be allowed to come back. The only impact to those wetlands, permanent impact, would be obviously clearing, but then the hosts themselves. And we have a couple of paths for the inverters. That's pretty much it. So it's roughly 3,600 to 3,800 square feet of wetland permanent impact, which is fairly limited given this is close to 4 acres of wetland overall.
I just put that in context because I saw Jan's head snap around when you talked about the 5 acre threshold.
Yep.
So the total area is about 32 acres. The facility is about 19 acres.
Yep.
That gets us under a 20 acre threshold, and then the impacted areas is.
Right, the developed area for stormwater, when we have to talk about managing stormwater runoff, which I think is one of your questions, that's based on that developed area, which is just the posts and the road impervious surfaces. So the panels themselves will sheet into the grass and the wetland areas, so there won't be any. They'll be naturally managed for stormwater.
And that whole strategy was in discussion with the DEP and the Army Corps. So that's that whole consult.
So how do you get in there? Do you go through the parking lot behind the ex-Walgreens building, or?
Yeah, so in between Walgreens and A. Robinson, there's the access in here. Here is what we're proposing at this point in time.
Is that currently a deeded access?
So the property we bought, adjacent to the property we already owned, came with that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good question, Tom. It's that was a dicey beginning to the project, was figuring out how to do that. But we own it now. It's closed.
So somebody riding up Route 95, they look off to the right, and they're going to see those panels.
No.
Oh.
So 95 is right here.
Yeah.
This whole stretch right here is going to remain forested.
Okay.
So that won't be cleared. Plus, that's all wetland area that will remain natural wetland area.
So if you're living in one of the trailers and parking in the trailer park, though, you're going to look out your window and see it.
And something that we have on our site plan for that is buffer plantings are detailed out on the site plan for that. I don't know.
And the way
they are here, but
the angle of the panels are going to be southwesterly or westerly. So, technically, from the trailer park, you would be looking at the bottom side or end of the unit. There would be no reflection.
Yeah.
I probably dreamt this, but
it's hard to do.
Somebody, these aren't, some of the solar parks, whatever you want to call them, the panels move, they rotate based upon the sun.
This isn't one of those. This is a fixed tilt. This is what we call a fixed tilt installation.
Okay. But
I have a couple of comments if I could make them.
Sure, go ahead.
The south end of the lot has trees that are actually over on the town. The applicant would like to cut so that his signs would be, his units would catch the sun. we have an agreement with the DEP that we can't do any trimming or cutting in that area. And so that would have to be addressed. It hasn't been yet. I don't know if we could get some sort of a waiver from the DEP to do that or whatever, but it pertains to the permit we got for the wetlands and the industrial park. And number two, some of that area in the south end of the lot is in a floodplain, and we haven't really addressed what permitting that's going to need yet. I think it's minor, but I do have to spend a little more time with that. But you could make it, or I think I did mark it as conditional on obtaining a floodplain permit if one is needed. We need to research that more. Thank you.
I think for the first question, Steve, with the clearing area, Jim is coming to the site tomorrow. If it's okay, I can query him a little bit on that. And that's just an ask from us. It's not something that's absolutely necessary. So if it's no-go with DEP, no-go.
It improves the performance of the facility. We're eager to do it. And I think you accounted for, actually there was no accounting for leaving the stump. There is no accounting for it.
Right, we did, in the NERPA application, there is within the wetland table, we did put it in the table, but we didn't actually put it into the full NERPA permit, just knowing that's a question.
And we have all of your applications and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. How's the connection get to utility?
So right up here would be the easement area for the overhead that would then connect to the three-phase on the roof.
The very short generally.
Yeah. And that connection to the grid with CMP, that interconnect agreement is done. It's 100%.
So there won't be like a substation or anything?
No.
So you'd have,
What we call it.
I think, 5 or 6 poles through that section, and then it would otherwise be vegetated.
And because this is under a certain size, what does that mean again?
You want level of
Oh,
permitting?
you mean that, yes, so the fence line, which is the project area,
Okay.
is 19.6 acres.
Right.
We're under 20 acres, which is the threshold for site law permitting,
Okay.
which kicks it up the next level of stormwater permitting.
That was my question. I forgot it was 20. Okay.
And we've talked to Jim about that and verified that is truly the case, so.
Your two areas, they were industrial, and what was the other one?
Highway commercial.
Yeah, highway commercial in the front. So basically that land is not really usable for anything else, right?
That's correct. There's a strip up on the high side that is not very wide, it would be, but the bulk of it is not. Yeah, we've owned that for 35 years.
Yeah.
35 years, and this is the first productive thing we found to do with it, so that should be an indicator.
Fred talked earlier about you can't have an entrance within 300 feet of the interstate.
Right.
That makes that, you can't get, there's nothing commercial you can do with it.
That was that
productive.
3 acres that's been for.
Yeah, that's it.
Sign.
We bought that acres to hook to ours, but
Yeah.
I guess I have one question, later not. The Walgreens store going out, does it have anything to do with your project?
Well, we just found out about that last week.
I'm just curious.
Right.
I think, I don't want to claim to be the expert on it. They don't own that store.
They don't.
They lease that store. And so when they bought it from Rite Aid, they continued the lease. The lease is ready to be renewed or expire. And I think, yeah, they're just saying, we don't need this bigger store. That building's gonna be empty, whether they build one or not. Walgreens wrote off $250 million last quarter because of COVID. So as an entity, Walgreens is struggling. So this is a way of reducing cost. And I don't think Pittsfield's unique. I think that's the Walgreens. And I don't think that industry is unique. The banks are doing the same thing. This whole, with COVID, and they don't need to have the branches open. They realize people will do electronic banking. You're gonna see banks shrink in terms of the square footage they use, and in other industries as well. That isn't unique to Pittsfield, unique to Walgreens. That's the way the world's going.
Because the last few years, they've already closed thousands of stores.
Yeah.
For the merger.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Leonard Warren. I'm the one that bought the Carriage Estates mobile home park in my face. Can you guys explain the easement and compared to what we were talking about when you originally contacted us and what happened and what you're using now?
Sure. Let me take a swing at that. So, I'm trying to how to be in the least way of everybody. So the actual piece of property we bought here is a pork chop in here, and with it came this section here. And at one time, just for full disclosure, we were talking to Len about accessing through his facility and the like, and we ended up, this piece of property actually solved a few different problems. It made a very clean interconnect, very straight, very direct interconnect, and it also gave us a more permanent access to the site. So we ended up buying that pork chop, and with it came the ability to access down through here between Walgreens and A.D. Robinson.
So is this, to me, it just looks like the same easement, the same place we were talking about before.
The difference is we were actually coming onto your property off the end, and we needed your access to come down onto your property before we turned sideways. And by buying that piece of property, we got that and that strip in between. And the other thing, when I loved it while you were here, so we did talk with Len before that acquisition and when we were first conceiving the project. And Len made it, pretty clear to us that he would like to make sure that the tenants in here had some protection of being butted right up against a solar farm. That's why you'll see on this drawing we have plantings. We didn't specify exactly how much or where, but the intent was to honor that commitment to you as a good neighbor. And we think up in this area where the trees are thick, they're not needed, and down here where it gets thinner, they are needed. That's global overview.
All right, and then another question is about the, stormwater runoff and drainage and Army Corps of Engineers plan.
Yep.
So what's the potential for us to get stormwater drainage
Back.
problems coming from your project?
So I think from looking at the site and doing field recon, we are going to have an access road that's going to come along the property line area. So some of these larger wetlands, they all drain in this direction. So we have a grading plan here. So I call it a grading plan. It's really just a topo plan that shows how the drainage does flow. It all goes down towards, there's a small stream out over here somewhere. And then also there's Farnham Brook, which is down towards the interstate. So it all goes downhill in that direction. Very
So
limited
my
chance
property's
of
uphill from yours?
Yeah, we sheet.
They're coming on, their water goes on.
Right to the west.
So if there's any, those that rock burrito should allow any water that would be on your property, make sure it keeps flowing.
And then there's another discharge down at the bottom where it's adjacent to the Sonico property, so some of it drains off the bottom as well.
And so the tree border that we're talking about is, our agreement is that we're gonna work together. If it's sort of a problem for us in the future, we can thicken it up with trees if we ask you guys.
Yeah.
And,
Or continue to plant trees on your own property as well, right? There's enough space there.
Yeah.
It just, the area we had sensitivity to is that thinner area down in the southern end that we planned on putting some plantings there.
And then, this might be a stupid question, but what's the potential for rising temperatures in the adjacent land?
Because of the panels?
Yeah.
We're unaware of anybody that's recorded anything like that. I understand your question.
Yeah, I don't have any idea, but you might think that would heat up all those homes back there.
There's a lot of space compared to the panels. The panels are, boy, I want to think the row space in Corey is in that 30-foot zone, 25-foot zone, somewhere. There's a fair amount of space between the rows. So it's not panel to panel. There's a fair amount of space between those panels.
And the same, like the previous solar project gentleman described, the noise level is not particularly any issue.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and we had a sound engineer look at it. It surprised us that would even be an issue, but we looked at it in our adjacency to your installation. And I think his explanation that it's like a window AC unit is truly fair, and the exact numbers are around 53 decibels.
So we'll probably be noisier than you
I
once we're
suspect so,
done.
yeah. And we have the ability, if for whatever reason, that as we finalize design and we think we're going to be on that limit, we have the ability to take the inverters that produce that sound and pull them back into the project and get them off the edge. So just get some more distance.
So if it was ever a problem once it was built, we'd talk about it?
Yeah, we're going to make it not a problem from the beginning. we don't want to move it after it's built. We'll we'll satisfy you from the get-go.
Well, thank you. I'd just like to go on record as saying that Carriage Estates Mobile Home Park supports the project, especially with the agreement to do tree planting to fill in the density for visibility, and, you know.
We appreciate that.
Great. Excuse me, Steve, do you have any other comments or questions?
Did you address me?
Yeah, do you have any other comments or questions or things?
I'm having a very difficult time understanding the words. They're all jumbled. What was the question?
No, do you have any other questions or concerns?
I'm sorry, I can't get it.
I'll call you on your phone. No, do you have any other questions or concerns?
Just can't make out what you're saying.
Okay, somebody else try.
Do you have any questions or concerns?
Well, we need to settle on what the buffer zone is in width. I haven't heard you talk about that yet. And then the other concerns I've listed is conditional on recommended as conditional on approving the permit.
Understood.
And I guess I would have, the only thing I would bring up is decommissioning bond.
That was exactly what
I didn't want to say this when the other.
I understand. No,
But if you think about, I'm sorry, this will make more sense. Year one, you could probably get someone to pay to have access to have what's there.
Right.
It's an income, year one. Year 20, it's an expense.
Right.
So it's a declining asset, if you will. So though a bond is a nice vehicle, I just would caution the town, we would prefer to give you a guarantee, but here's the problem with the bond. They're not going to give a 20-year bond. So we buy bonds every day to build bridges and do everything. When you get more than 4 years, the bonding company gets really squirrely. And when you get to 5, they don't want to talk to you. What they will do is say, yes, we'll enter into a 20-year agreement that's adjusted and renewed every year. What happens year 5 when the person doesn't pay the bond premium? Well, you can't take the building permit away. What do? The thing's built. So you will see a lot of people say, oh, I'll get your bond year 1. You have the bond, which is going to cost them less than $1,000. Right. And then they don't pay the bond premium and you have nothing. And so I just caution, your risk is of someone abandoning a project is at the end, right, not the beginning. And you get the bond at the beginning, you have no guarantee they're going to pay the premium later. The bond is the right tool if they pay for it. And they're only going to pay annually, and it'll get adjusted in value. So when they come up with 30, I think they're averaging what it really costs year 20 with the fact that you get paid to do it year 1 and get somewhere in the, that's how they get the 39. What we would prefer to do is give a corporate guarantee that says we will pay whatever the costs are to remove it whenever that time is needed. If it's an income stream, that's not a problem. If it's an expense, it'll get done.
We'll clean it up.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, my only concern you know, I have a little bit more faith, so to speak, in Chimbrow being in Pittsfield than someone far away that, you know, all we have is a letter saying, well, we've got plenty of finances, which really doesn't tell you much. You know, so that's my concern. You know, and I acknowledge that I'm not knowledgeable enough on bonds. I know what I want to end up with, but I don't know exactly how to get there. Basically, I just looking at protecting down the road, because at the end of these projects or whatever, you know, nobody wants to spend money for, you know, no income coming back.
I see it. This is solar, and they are a lot different than, let's say, a wind project or a power plant or a nuclear power plant. So a lot of other ways they do it is they build the decommissioning fund as you go. You contribute to it, so you have a bucket at the end, because the plan is to decommission at the end. Here, you know, whether you put new panels on in year 20 and go again is to be seen, because we haven't run a 20-year cycle yet, versus a nuclear power plant where they decommission. So a bond is a vehicle. I just caution that there's loopholes around that, and you don't. I live in. I told these guys earlier, right? You know, Pittsfield's home to us. The last place, you know what? I don't know wrong. We're not gonna shit in our backyard. Right? I mean, that's so. But if you think of this,
Can you repeat
that? One of the benefits of that is, compared to some of the others, is all the revenue created. Yes, it's going to lower those who participate there, like Bill and Pittsfield, or any of the surrounding communities, but Pittsfield gets priority. But the revenue that generated goes to the building next door, which goes to the 500 people that work in it, that all live right around or in this town. It's not going to New York City. And there's value in that. And so I would just share with you, however you need it, so you have a guarantee. If you need a parent guarantee, if you need something corporately from us, we'll do that. Because our intent is not to stick the town with a bunch of steel pipes sticking out of the ground when it's all done.
And I would add on to, well, a couple of questions first of all. I mean, you said, you know, where are we going to be 20 years from now? And I think solar in 20 years is going to look very different than it does today. What I heard is the panels usually have, what, 7, 8, 9 years of life, and then they need to kind of be replaced again?
These are 25 years.
Okay. The second piece is you own the property. And the other deal, that's a lease. And I see that as something a little bit different. So, yeah, we all know where you guys live. So if there's a problem, if we can take care of that.
To your point, we have a vested interest in that property being productive in 20 years.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Yeah, part of the reason they look at leases is tax-wise more than anything, I think.
No, I think they're looking at it as a way to raise money, or that they don't have to buy the property.
They'll be very leveraged. That's not uncommon. Okay, so the panels, since we built the first one to the panels that we would put on this one, there's more output per square foot. The technology has advanced that fast. So where will that technology be in 20 years is who knows, but what is good about it, it's a proven technology, right? That the concept of how they excite the electrons and create them works. So, the moving panels we talked about, which we are doing here, that is becoming popular.
Yep.
You know, to track that sun. Out west in the desert, they already do it all the time. There's a problem with that. When things are moving, that means it needs maintenance. That means things break. That means other things happen. And so there's pros and cons to it. So in the middle of the winter, when there's a foot of snow, moving panels might not be the right
20
thing to
below.
do. Yeah, yeah, 20 below, and you're gonna be like this.
But you'll see them in Maine in a year. You'll see them in Maine in a year.
There's some up in Fort Kent now.
Big, those are big tables, right? Well,
Yeah, they know, on big pedestals,
Yeah.
and they turn.
Yeah.
They're honestly very efficient. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
and they can dump the snow. They can turn those ones right up and dump the snow
Yeah.
off and then put them back.
Yeah.
One thing you will see interesting in what we're planning here is the panels are a bifacial panel, which means that not only do they catch irradiance from the top side, but there's bottom side reflective, which again speaks to the improvements in technology and getting more out of the same footprint of the panels consumed.
I'd love to add one thing, and you talked about this being our hometown, but the other thing that you all might not feel, but I can tell you it's happening, we bring a lot of people to Pittsfield Solar. People who aren't even interested in solar when they start. And Pittsfield has a moniker of being cutting edge town in Maine, first largest utility scale solar installation. And Pittsfield Solar, town of Pittsfield shows up in a lot of places you wouldn't believe. And I think that's good for the town. I think that's all good for the town. There's a lot of benefits.
You have 40 acres outside of it.
Where is it? Right next across the street?
Yeah.
All right.
No, wait, before you do that, maybe we can.
I got a lawnmower out of this, so other piece of land tonight, I love it.
Well, maybe we can get these guys to buy the soon-to-be empty Walmart building.
Yeah, the Walgreens.
The Walgreens building.
We bought UTC. And everybody said it wasn't worth anything, but.
No, but you didn't get Trump there. You didn't get Trump to come, you went to Guilford.
Well, easy place for him.
And moving along.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need some kind of recommendation here.
I'd like to make a proposal that we approve the project based upon
Pending
approval of the permits, receive the permits.
You second that?
Yeah.
Did you get that? Any other questions? Pete, you want to say anything?
No, I hear so little that it doesn't make.
Have you heard that?
Jan, you're too soft-spoken.
If the work, but that's by design. When I used to.
I can't even get the jokes, guys. I didn't.
When I used to teach, I would sometimes use a lower voice because it caused the kids to pay more attention. So Pete, pay attention. No, I'm just kidding. Any other questions or concerns?
I'm going to abstain from the vote. It'll become apparent later.
I know why. So.
Yeah, just.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. So.
I have one question just for information purposes. The waste, are they hazardous? Are they, so like in the 20 years when you gotta replace them or whenever they gotta be replaced?
Yeah, there's a waste stream for everything, so you don't just take it to the local landfill and bury it. I mean, there's elements that have to go to certain places.
Yeah, just more curious.
Most of it is recycled.
It is most be able to recycle.
Yeah.
I'm just
You're
curious.
paying all the wires, that gets recycled all the way to junk
Yeah.
out into steel.
I know the wires, some of those paintings are not, they have hazardous waste.
So there are elements within them that have to go to a particular waste stream. You're not wrong.
So more or less like a universal waste.
So when do you see having paperwork and everything back to us?
Are we talking about the DEP permit?
Yeah, all the permits.
Yes.
Sure, yeah, the DEP permit, they told us that their statutory timeline would be August 10th, and the Army Corps would be right around that same time frame.
So you're looking at starting something when?
This fall. Yeah. But we have a procurement cycle. So Lauren talked about the construction details of waiting for frozen ground because of the nature of that land, but we have procurement activities that have to happen well in advance of that. And so this is critical path what we're doing. This is absolutely critical path to get to the finish line.
You talked about Pittsfield becoming kind of getting recognized for some of this. And this is, I mean, schools aren't in session right now and those kinds of things, but are there some things that you can do with kids?
Absolutely.
To make them a little bit more aware, not just of solar, but of energy and I don't know whether we're ever going to see a school open again or not, but it would be nice to be able to get them kind of conditioned and prepared for, you know, the next 15, 20, 25 years. And, you know, to take trips out there, to go into schools and talk about, or say, you know, your mom and dad get your electricity from here. That's, I don't know how that
We
would look.
love that. We can't do enough of it, and we're eager to do more of it.
We do right now, anyone that wants to come, we are willing to show, and some people are more technical, some are just more curious. But we have, you know, the governor, when she signed her bill about solar, it was done at Pittsfield Solar. We hosted the event, it was done in the solar array. The Nature Conservancy has been out multiple times, and they can't really talk about what they're doing, but it's because they come to Pittsfield and what's going on in Pittsfield. So they're not going to do what they're going to do in Pittsfield, but they're modeling what they see here. And so we are, Pittsfield is getting recognized, and people are coming to Pittsfield because it's here. So ultimately that bodes well for the town being more forward thinking and carbon neutral, and regardless if the power goes residential or industrial or the CMP. It's amazing how we got on the map.
Well, the ad is on TV too, and I guess I'm from the old school, and I took industrial arts, and I actually took home ec. I know I don't cook much, but you know, those kinds of things. I think, you know, we need to get kids. Not everybody's going to be going to college anymore. We need people with hands and like to get their hands dirty. And this isn't necessarily a dirty thing, but it does say there are other things out there that are equally as important, or maybe even more important, than just getting a BA or BS degree from the university in English literature.
So let me tell you I'll give you a short synopsis of one of our major motivations of being in this business. So what you just spoke of, the lack of skilled craft and the lack of academic direction to push people in that direction as opposed to pushing them to the university direction. One of the things we see about the solar field, and I'm old enough to remember when the big capital expenditures happened in the mills, and for most of my career, I lived with a group of people that were trained on those giant capital projects, and then their skill sets we used for the next 30 years. Those giant capital projects in the mills aren't happening. This solar opportunity is that big capital project that Maine has not had for some time. So in the electrical trade in particular, that is excruciatingly thin trade, we think this is a 4 to 5 year run. And we see this as an incredible opportunity to bolster our craft, especially in the electrical trade, because a lot of the solar work is not high skill work at the entry level. There's a lot of entry level work in solar work. But people can see that next elevation in paycheck, skill, competency. And if the thing, a lot of our projects are so short, it's hard for people to have the vision of how do I get from here to there. If there's a 4 to 5 year run in the solar space, someone that comes in as a laborer in our first job can be a journey level electrician 4 years from now at the back end of this cycle. And if we can do that for 50 to 100 people in the electrical trade, we've done something. And then they will be part of our workforce for the next 20 years. Like the folks that were early in my career coming out of the big capital jobs in the mills. That's how we see it. That's one of our biggest motivators to be in the solar business. So I think that's very in keeping with what you just said about the training opportunity. You were thinking about the schools. I think of it as OJT, but we got the same goal.
Okay. Did we vote on that yet?
No.
Okay, all in favor? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So.
So how many for?
We made it, we got enough people here.
Yeah, just.
How'd you vote, Jim?
I said yes, I said aye. So. What'd you say?
I said yes.
I mean, opposed.
Yeah.
Still voting.
Oh, so it was 5.
5.
And 1 abstention.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. We got here earlier than we thought. They asked me when I came in, what's the latest you've ever been in this room? I said, well past midnight. And let's hope we don't go that way. Right, Tom? Remember those nights?
We both have recollections in this place that aren't good.
Okay, so, under new business, that's the last item. Discussion items. You had a thing on your desk that came from the council, that they would like to get rolling along on some of the discussions about the future of some things. So, that's it. That's to think about. Any other items for discussion at this point?
As far as them wanting to meet twice a month, or having meetings twice a month, I'm in a better position now.
Okay. Well, I think, well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this virus thing. That's kind of what's held us back a little bit.
Come on, Andy, you can do it.
Anything else? So if there's nothing else, I guess I would take a motion to, no, I'm going to do it this way. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The signatures, would just give it to Steve and take care of that.
Yeah, we'll have to worry.
Yeah, we need a print with,
Is Steve still online?
Yeah, I'm still here, I'll be in the office on Monday.
All right, we'll come see you. We'll have things you need to clean us up.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yep, it's down in the left-hand corner.
We'll come see you to get these conditional items on a track to completion.
You don't need to.
Okay.
We're right across.
Thanks for everything.
You can come up, look at the 40 acres anytime you want.
I will.
Right across the street.
I will. How do you do?
My neighbor's going fast. Well, insurance is blocking now. They're supposed to see a specialist today. Last Friday they called.
Are y'all gonna see?
Cancel therapy. And I know that ain't bad. I've gone 2 years, getting worse.
The party, yeah?
Excuse me?
Fill out the party?
Yeah.
I can hear you fine with
The
that.
final paperwork has to be done.
Yeah. Welcome to retirement, bud.
Well, I'm still there. Yeah. Now, now he's paying all the bills. I'm still working nothing. But, well, everything that went to hell as far as dairy, market, price of trash. And the 1st of June, 1st of May, I was going to start punching that box. And I told him, I said, I got enough money. I don't need to be sticking another knife in
We
me.
are looking for someone that can hire.
So, you've known Barney for a while?
Come to me and take the notes.
So basically, my Barney's pretty good. Yeah, Barney is like, here and there.
Yeah, I'll bet I mind. I'll keep my name
There, or folks there, most of the time for anything. Big comes up.
Thanks, man. Have a good
The only
night.
number works his grandson came on full time first of May. His foot had to my place. Work into the.
You guys, and then farmer equipment, when I get done with my career, I'm done.
I miss mom and dad's to it.
I don't think we are.
We've been there 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
They'll break right up. It's software that regrows. Hardware, you cut it off, it's gonna grow right through. The software will break up. A couple years time, they'll all the small ones, they'll take out that stuff and probably will be
Hey, you got through everything. Oh, not bad.
Cultivator.
The only thing, you really have to do is put in there a little.
Thank you, Lord.
Pop them up.
Yeah.
I mean, if he makes the motion so that he has to that he may now also have to be satisfied with the conditions.
Thank you, Dan. Good night.
These excavators with these rotary heads on them now, they grind trees and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
One of those, you just hit it, and it would disintegrate everything right there in like a 2-foot circle.
Yeah.
And you know, you
You've
could
got
go
the
right through,
attendance
but
list, haven't
that
you?
isn't gonna be
Yeah.
real
Give
cheap.
them notes and
No.
give them
But it'd be fast and it'll be all done.
No, I'm just, you know, I mean, we got that field still, we got.
You know, I'm confused about this whole solar, like, there were two groups tonight doing the same thing.
It's out in the winter.
And they're both offering
Even though
the
you're not at
same
Christmas, but I mean,
kind
it's
of a deal.
You know.
So they're
Not on the same
competitors.
scale that you're at, but it's just hard to get someone, maybe even show up.
Yes and
Oh, I'll be there, and they're there for 3 days. and-
So, I mean, these other people
That's why
said,
everybody's
you know,
going to
like
try to do everything with
10%
cancel.
discount.
You
Can these people
can't
say,
buy,
well, we'll give
you
you a
can't
lot?
pay for it, you get reliant on it. How's that help?
They're going to,
No, and you plan your day around them, or your week, you know, you sit there and say, well, I'll be there.